name's Bob Kepford, and I work for Media Current.
Yes. Clarification. So this is not a presentation on web background.
It is not. No. So I work for Media Current. I'm a Drupal developer there. I've been there about 4 months, and we are hiring and looking for help. So if you're interested, stop by our booth. I like to refer to myself as the West Coast office of Media Current because I live in California, but not the California that you guys are probably familiar with. This is what my hometown's known for. So I live in Central California, in between LA and San Francisco. And I've been doing Drupal for quite a while, about 5 years. This is my first computer. So you might know me from the Weekly Drop. That's my newsletter I've been doing for a little while. And if you want to keep up with Drupal, it's a good resource to check out. And that will be it for my plugs. So we're going to talk about Drupal 8 and features that are built into Drupal core that you can use to build a blog just with Drupal core. The features that are available in Drupal core are pretty awesome. So I know there've been a lot of features added, and some people are concerned about feature bloat and things like that. But from what I've seen with Drupal 8, the features that are added are actually useful and make sense. And we're not going to be talking about the backend and Symfony components that have been added. We're going to be talking about building stuff with Drupal 8 today and what you can do. So we're going to cover creating a content type, creating a view, and I'll briefly cover just kind of a high overview of the configuration API. So for content types, if you download, let's make it a show of hands. Who's downloaded and installed Drupal 8 at some point? All right. So content types have changed, not a whole lot, but the UI and stuff has been improved, and there's been a lot of contrib functionality moved into Drupal 8. Not necessarily modules moved into Drupal 8, but there's been some nice improvements. For one thing, if you notice the screenshot, this is from an iPhone. So Drupal 8, the admin interface is all responsive. It works really well on an iPhone. I think I've seen demos where you can actually install Drupal on an iPhone, which is pretty awesome. But one of the cool things is the operations widget, which is just, a lot of these things just make doing stuff on Drupal on a mobile device or a small screen easier, and that's one small improvement. One of the other interesting things is the managed fields. Pages have been split out into 2 pages. So if you create a content type and you need to manage your display and manage your form, those are broken out into 2 separate tabs. And I'll show you that here in a few minutes with the demo. But like your managed display basically can be separate from, you can actually manage your form, order of your elements and things like that in a separate display. And you can do a lot actually in the UI that you previously might have had to do with hook form alters or a third-party module like auto node title or something like that. New file format are available in core: RSS enclosure, table files, URL to file. So just some nice additions. You can hide the title form element, and that's a pretty common feature request that you used to have to install a couple modules or do in your own custom module. So overall, there's just a lot of stuff that used to require more work that's just available to you. HTML5 elements and tags that are available. One of them is placeholders, which is pretty cool. I've always liked adding that functionality on my Drupal sites. So as you can see, if you're not familiar with the placeholder element, previously before HTML5 you could do this with JavaScript. But basically it's just an example. So in this example, it's a PHP. It's just giving you an example of what tags are, what's expected input for this field. And you can do that in your fields. The date field's been added, email field's been added, phone fields have been added, all the core. So those things are great because if you're on a mobile device, they just work. They give you, like, if you're on an iPhone, for example, and you have an email field or a phone field, they'll just work like they would in an app or like, in any other modern web application. So that stuff being available in Drupal core is pretty sweet. So let's jump over and do a quick demo of content types. Let's see here. going on? There we go. All right. So we're not going to go through creating every field, but I just want to kind of give you a live view of what it looks like. So blog post, we'll name our content type, and we'll save. We'll leave all these other default settings. Save and manage fields. All right. Live demos are always a bad idea, FYI, but I still do them. So that should tell you something. All right. Well, what we'll do is we'll create a tags field, and I'm just going to name it something stupid because apparently this is not a clean database apparently, or my config directory is not clean or something. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a term reference field just to show a couple things here. All right. We want this to be unlimited using the tags vocabulary. And this is just like a clean install of Drupal using whatever it's called, the default install profile. Standard, I think is what it's called. Slipping my mind at the moment. All right. So as you could tell, like not a whole lot's changed as far as this goes, which is important to remember, as there's a lot of concern about Drupal 8 being a big shift for people. And I think an important thing to remember is that a lot of the changes in Drupal 8 are on the back end. And so if you spend a lot of time in the UI, it's an improvement. There's not really much of a learning curve at all. It's probably the Drupal that you use every day already. Just now it's all in core. So let's go ahead and look at we have a managed field right here. This UI here. So I want to go ahead and manage my form display. I'm going to change the select list over to auto term complete. Go ahead and modify this, and we'll show that this is the placeholder element. So right here I can basically say I want to show users this placeholder text. Just giving them an example. We'll say JavaScript. Everybody likes JavaScript now. Remember when JavaScript wasn't cool? Like 2 years ago? All right. So I can manage my the order at which these form elements appear on the form very easily. So that's enough of clicking around in the interface. Let's actually look at a completed content type. So, not comment forms, all right, content types. So I've created a content type here. And you can see not a whole lot's changed between Drupal 7 and Drupal 8. But as you go through Drupal 8, like you basically will start to notice little things. It's like a lot of polish on Drupal 8 versus Drupal 7. So just like the placeholder element, things like that. So let's go ahead and create a post just to kind of show you how things have changed here. All right, create a blog post. As you can see, like the page layout has been modified so that it looks a lot more like WordPress as far as the editor's interface. So I'm going to create a blog post real quick. We'll give it the tag DCATL. And then some more missing. One of my favorite new features in Drupal 8 is the save and publish, or you can save as unpublished. And so if you're working on a blog post and you don't really want to publish it, you don't have to go and check that checkbox that we used to have. So this is pretty sweet in my opinion. I know this was my wife's #1 feature request in Drupal 7. Was I would like to be able to save as draft. So hey, Drupal 8. And this is alpha software. So beware. All right. So a lot of cool stuff being added to the content types. Let's go ahead and Going back over to presentation. All right, then the next thing in Drupal 8, and you probably all know this, but views is in core, right? And so that's great, but a lot of times, like when we first announced it, that's great. I'll be able to build all my views and stuff. I won't have to download a module, big deal. But basically, almost all the listing, almost all your pages now in the Drupal admin are editable with views. So it's extremely powerful to be able to, you can really customize the Drupal admin now without, building modules and getting into all kinds of complex ways, and things are more standardized, which is super powerful. So, but if you look at views in Drupal 8, it's basically the current views you're using now. So it's not been drastically changed. There's the only difference I have seen from the front end basically is that there's an embedded display now. So you could, which is I think is being used in a lot of the admin pages. So previously, if you wanted to create a listing page and use views, you would just create like a regular views display, and you could do it, but this makes it a lot easier, basically. So not a whole lot's changed, but we can really quickly look at what I built here. No, but it's kind of basically like, okay, so the question was, does the views embed replace the content pane? And it doesn't replace that. Let me go ahead and show you this view real quick. So like if you go to /admin/content, like I'm pretty sure that that's an embedded view. I'm not 100% sure of that, but that's my understanding. Like if you want to embed a view inside of like a page generated by a module, like so and use views in that, I'm pretty sure that's what they're doing with it, and that's why it was added. Like I said, you could do that before, but it wasn't as easy to do. So let's go ahead and go to our views page. So I created a blog view, and so the functionality here is that, let me go ahead and just show the actual blog first, it'll make more sense. So basically, all I did was create a basic blog feature that everybody's built 100 times. But now you don't have to install any modules. You can just do all this and a lot more actually with Drupal core. So I created a blog feature that just gives me a page of the blog posts. If we go to one of these blog posts, I can see I have a recent post block here. If I go up here and I type in blog/Drupal, we've got not blogs, blog/Drupal, I will get just the post tag with blog. So you can kind of see, like, you can pretty much, I was talking to another developer today, like, you can build a lot of the sites that you were building on Drupal 7 with just Drupal 8 core. So I think that's one of the most huge, it's a huge thing for Drupal in my opinion. Like it's just, Drupal's been an awesome tool for a long time, but could you really build something out of the box with no contributed modules and no code or anything? Yeah, you could, but you can do so much more now. All right, so let's look at this actual view. So as you can see, like, this looks pretty much like a Drupal 7 view page. We've got a page here, we've got a block. I've created an RSS feed. I've created a recent post block. I could easily create a JSON feed of this blog. I could write an XML feed. So you can do quite a bit. You've got all the functionality you had in Drupal 7 is all built in and very, very powerful. I mean, I would just recommend like downloading Drupal 8 and just trying to build something simple with it. And it's just, you hear this stuff, but when you actually start working with it, you see how awesome it is to actually have these tools just with Drupal core. All right. So the big thing that's got a lot of us that do Drupal every day excited is configuration, and we all, I mean, how many of you use the features module? So most of us have. We all probably hate and love the features module, but it's not really fair to the features module because it's really trying to do a lot of work. So there's, at first, a lot of people were saying, like, we won't need the features model in Drupal 8 because we have the configuration API. And I don't really agree with that. Because, and I'll explain to you, because when you start actually working with Drupal 8, you're going to like see the configuration that it spits out, and creating some package functionality by hand is going to be very laborious. So the features module is, or something that does that packages up into an encapsulated module or a package, is going to be required to make it workable. But now we have the proper API to do that in a clean and a reproducible way. So the configuration API at the core, it basically writes out YAML files. So any configuration that you do in Drupal 8 is written to file in this format. And YAML's actually really easy to understand as far as a file format. As you can see, like, you've got your ID, you have a unique identifier, and you can just kind of read through this and it kind of makes sense. Like if you look at a view, you can see that it's a lot easier to actually understand this than looking at a feature export, for example. And so what happens is you have a configuration directory that Drupal creates, and then you have the active and a staging directory. So your current setup in Drupal, so if I create a blog like I did, and a content type and some fields and things like that, all that configuration gets saved immediately to the file system in my active directory. Staging directory by default is just completely empty. So whatever's in active is what's active. Whatever's in staging is not being looked at, basically. By default, when you install Drupal, it creates these directories for you, so you don't have to be a developer. It'll just do it for you. But as you can see, it's a random hash in your files directory, which works, right? But it's not probably what you're going to want if you're going to keep this under version control, if you're going to deploy it. So luckily, and this is all still under development, so this talk may not be useful in 6 months, but currently the way it works is your files are all saved out like this, right? So you got all your YAML files. But the nice thing is that you can configure where this active directory and this staging directory live. And they don't even have to live within the Drupal doc root. So in my setup right now, as you can see, like I have it set up basically at the same level as my doc root. And so in this setup I have right now, I have them under in their own Git repo. So my configuration is saved separate from Drupal core. There's any number of ways you could do this. Like you could keep configuration in the same repository as Drupal core. I'm sure smarter people than I will come up with really cool workflows for this. But basically, I can put it where I want on my system. And I've just set this as an absolute path, as you can see, and they're set up at the same level as my doc root. So the staging directory is what's interesting. So the way it's supposed to work, and I say supposed to because it hasn't been working that well so far for me, is you have your active directory, that's your current configuration. So the idea is I want to be able to move in functionality. Say I want to update a view, I move that updated YAML file into my staging directory, and then I want to move that from staging into active. So I can go into the Drupal admin UI and I can see what changes have been, or what differences there are between active and staging. And there's a nice little diff functionality that's built in already. And it basically, this diff is just of 2 UUIDs, which is a problem, usually. My understanding is you can write machine names that will fix this. But so you basically will have whatever's in your active and your staging is going to be, you'll be able to see a diff of it in Drupal. Obviously, you can do that in the file system. So let's just take a quick peek. Why is this not working? We'll go over to configuration and development, configuration management. So there's no changes. Let me jump over to my other instance here. Configuration. All right, we need to change something. So we'll see here. Oh, I don't have anything in my staging directory, no wonder. Duh. All right. Like I said, live demos. All right. Let's see. All right, let's just look at screenshots. Sorry about that. All right, hold on. All right, so basically, basically the idea is that you can see a diff, and then you can basically, in the Drupal UI, overwrite what's in your Active Directory with what's in your staging directory. So very similar to like a features override and a features revert. What I can show you, which will work, is export and import. All right. So you can so right now what functionality there is in the CMI interface is I can export all my configuration out as a tar gzip file. So all those YAML files are basically tarred up in archive. So like if I wanted to like move this up to from staging to my live server, I could do that. I mean, this is kind of you're probably not going to do it this way, but this is a real easy, quick and dirty way to do it. You can also import. So basically you'd export it there, then find that file and import it. So that works pretty well as long as you don't have conflicts with the machine or with the UUID names. But like I said, this is where like a contributed module is going to make this process a lot easier to grouping these into actual pieces of functionality, letting you set machine names, that kind of stuff. So you're not doing that by hand. So the idea that we don't need features module is kind of a pipe dream at this point, in my opinion. But that is the CMI like from a high level. So Drupal 8, like I said, it has a lot of new functionality that's built in, but it's not like you're learning a new system. It's easy to pick up. Uses in core, nothing really to learn there, but just think about like what you can build with Drupal core now. Just start playing with it and trying stuff out. We have a core sprint going on tomorrow here, so be sure and hang out for that. Configuration API is going to change one of the long-standing problems we've had, like database functionality, functionality being stored in the database, configuration being stored in the database along with our content. So a lot of the problems that we've had as developers are being fixed, basically. So for more resources, like on Drupal 8, this list could go real long, so I just put a few in here. Media Current's been doing a Drupal 8 webinar series, which is really good, just going over all kinds of different topics around Drupal 8. Like I said, my newsletter, I cover a lot of Drupal 8 stuff, so if you want to just keep a tab on that, that's an easy way to do it. There's a really good post by Heather James from Acquia, and just kind of really showing like functionality and modules that have been either replaced or obsoleted by Drupal 8, and there's a lot of stuff in there, and it's pretty interesting because Drupal 8's development has been so long that a lot of us have forgotten the stuff that was promised to be in. So it's a really good review. So that's all I have to say. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. But thank you for your time, and I hope you really enjoy Drupal Camp Atlanta. This is my first one, and I've had a good time. So, any questions? Mike?
Yeah, so I've been trying to wrap my head around how we're actually going to interact with CMI with Drupal 8. So, basically, from the user interface, if you're making a change to a view or something, that's automatically going to be written out to the proper YAML file and inside your active configuration directory, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So the question was, how is the configuration API interacting with, if you make a change in views, is that going to be immediately written out to the file for that view, that YAML file? Yeah. How are we going to interact with that? Right. Okay, so I've been thinking about the same thing, and it's interesting. I don't know. I wasn't involved in CMI at all, so my understanding is that, okay, so if you, let's just say that I have a production site that's already deployed. It's Drupal 8, so we've developed it locally or in our team or whatever, and we deployed it. So all the configuration is basically in that one directory that's active. So if I'm working locally, I can basically say the active directory is a different branch. So the active configuration is a completely different branch. I would do all my work in there, commit that. It's as simple as like a git, merge and then a git push. So just replacing the active files will actually update it. It's buggy at this point. I've had trouble with it. It works sometimes, but I think this is just I'm not doing it right, or it's still being developed. So there's bugs that we're going to find. So I think that's the idea. Now, where a contributed module comes in is when you want to encapsulate it. So if you just want to create a feature or a module, because you can do this now. All modules use the YAML files, so you could write this all out by hand. You can create your view and go in and replace the UUIDs with machine names. So I'm guessing that the idea would be to use machine names instead of UUIDs. I haven't had time to actually try that, but that's my understanding.
You have these different configurations for different environments, and the CMI written in a way that it was written with the mindset that each configuration set is going to be in a different branch, or your master branch is going to have different directories, one for your production configuration set, one for your test, one for your dev, and then it's going to be up to the developer to actually move files from YAML files from dev to stage to production, commit those to the new location, and then that's how they get moved out.
Well,
or is that just not, is that kind of, CMI allows?
I think it's really flexible. So last night I built this setup 2 months ago, and actually some of this stuff has changed in Drupal 8 since then. Shocking. So I updated it all over the last couple of days, and one thing that I basically had the same idea you had. Instead of having two branches of a repo where one is kind of development and one is production, and it's the same directory of configuration files, I actually had two different completely separate configuration files, and I just switched the settings. So that's another way you could do it. All this, you need to remember though that, and this is one that is a head scratcher for a lot of people, all this configuration is also stored in the database. So it's not just reading those files. It's actually in a table, and I don't remember, I think it's cache config or something. So it's a cache file. So you can clear that out, and it'll pick up basically. So it uses the database. And there's a reason behind that. Basically, a syntax error is what I've heard. It's like a safety, basically. So does that answer? Yeah. So I think what the boils down to is that it's flexible, and it's a lot of Drupal stuff. Its goal is to be flexible, so it's not really opinionated on how to manage the system. It's an API, so you could do it in any number of ways. And like I said, there's probably going to be all kinds of people with ideas on how this could be done. So another question. Anybody have? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. If my understanding of how the UUIDs are generated, if it's the same database, I think they'll be the same. Now, if you started working in both, I think you would get into trouble. I have no idea about Pantheon support of this. That's a real good question, because I don't know how Pantheon and Acquia and Aberdeen Cloud and all these different providers are going to handle this. There's any number of ways they could. Usually they don't have their files directory under version control. So right there, by default, the config is stored under /files, which is a security concern for a lot of people, and I mean rightly so. So my guess is that they would pull that out, and there's going to be some separate system to manage it, but I don't know. Interesting, though. It's going to be interesting. It's a lot easier problem to solve than your configuration being stored in your database. That's the bottom line, you know. And whoever's, you know, the features module could be greatly simplified by the fact that we have this API to work with. So it's pretty cool. Any other questions? When it's ready. When's Drupal 8 coming out? Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the conference.